This is the U Show Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the U Show Podcast. I'm Chris Treft, along with Des Moines Buccaneers voice, Ben Gisselson. And first off, happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July. It's going to be a fun day tomorrow. I know it's a little bit crazy. First time 4th of July has been on a Saturday, and how long? And we're supposed to be 6 feet apart, which I hope everyone is doing some sort of that and being safe. But nonetheless, we got something special for you this week. It's a holiday. It's very focused on the military, and with that, we have two military guys from the Air Force Academy, which is very different than our previous shows. They're not only great USHL guys, but who knows what they're going to do after their college career because they're the service, right? So it was a very interesting take. I didn't understand how crazy it actually was, and to hear it from them and their funny stories about all the stuff they have to go through, it is pretty crazy. But Zach Mirageas and Blake Bride are our two guests here for our special Independence Day feature.
Yeah, Bloomington Thunder for Mirageas, and still a defending Clark Cup champion, you might say, in Blake Bride with the Sioux Falls Stampede from now 2 seasons ago. But I had a little window into what it's like to walk into Air Force Academy. One of my best friends from when I was playing junior went there as a goaltender. Paul Moberg is his name. If he listens to this, he'll love that shout out. I doubt he will. But he filled me in early. He filled me in early on it. And I think I talked about it in the interview a little bit as well. I mean, he was just blown away. You can't really ever get your hands or your mind around what that first few weeks are going to be like until you get there. And you have an idea, you talk to people that are ahead of you in your class about it, and you heard Blake talk about it, we'll hear Zach talk about it. It's crazy. And it has to be. I mean, these are people that are going into the military for what I think many people consider the best military in the world. So it has to be that way. But on the back end, the one thing I know I've heard from Paul is it's a fabulous job. He loves what he does now. He's living in Boston with his wife, and they really set you up for life if you can get through it. And he got to be a part of a great college hockey program as well while he was there. So it's a huge commitment out of these guys, not only to do what they have to do in the classroom, out of the classroom, but on the ice as well on top of it. So we really enjoyed this. We salute these two young men for what they're doing, and all the young men and women that do what they do to allow us to live in this country and to be Americans. So that's enough of a red, white, and blue banner raising for me.
Well, for sure. Obviously, a huge thank you to everyone, including these two. Even if they don't pursue a career in the service afterwards, it's still what they're going through, even if it's to push others that end up going there. It's crazy. And not many college hockey players go from jumping out of planes to the rink to class. Yeah, Harvard's pretty hard in the classroom and other schools academically, but Air Force is pretty hard academically too, and they're jumping out of planes and doing crazy stuff. And then they have to go be a competitive hockey team, which they pull off. So what these guys do on the ice, off the ice, is just incredible. And you can see why, one of the strongest militaries in the world, right? When all these guys are doing stuff like this, not only at Air Force, Army, Navy, all of that. So big thank you to everyone in the service, and let's get right to it. Our special 4th of July edition of the U Show Podcast. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our special guests for this episode, and it's our July 4th week special edition. And we got a double duty for you here from Air Force Academy, Blake Bride and Zach Mirageas. And guys, first off, we want to thank you for your commitment to the country and for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. It's very commendable, and I'm sure it's tough at this moment to get through all the training and the schooling that you're going through on top of playing Division I college hockey for Air Force Academy. But first question for both of you is, was the military always in the books for you guys? Is that something you guys wanted to do and the hockey was on top of it? Did it go vice versa? Were you playing hockey and you realized Air Force Academy might be a good way to do military stuff and addition to hockey? What was that process like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, The military was never really in the horizon for me. Growing up, I always wanted to, go to a Hockey East school, being from the East Coast, and then maybe somehow making a living playing the game. But as I grew up, I realized it's much more than, just that. There's much more to life than, 20, 25 years of playing hockey, because you're going to have another 45, 50 after that, in which you're probably not going to be involved in the game. And you're going to be lucky if you are. So, I kind of realized that going to the academy would bring in some options to let me pick and choose what I want to do after, the game ended for me. So, it was a tough decision, but, I think a lot of the kids, especially in our group, on our team, we were mature enough to make a decision like that at such a earlier age than some other kids might have had to. So,
yeah, going off that, I was probably in the same boat. Committing there was definitely a hard decision for me. There's other options out there, obviously, and it really came down to when I visited the opportunity that it gives you coming out of that place. You do risk some time and effort into the schooling and the military part, but on the back end, after it's all said and done, you're set for life. You're in a good place where you could thrive, and that was big for me. And just knowing that after hockey, I have a place to fit in, I have a job, I have this family still. The fact of staying with a group, like a team, the military is pretty similar to that. So it really sort of fell together perfectly with just everything they offered and everything I could put into it and help people. It really just came full circle for me.
For those listening at home that are wondering, okay, we've got two young men from the Air Force Academy on here. What's their connection to the USHL? Well, surprise, surprise, both of you spent time in the United States Hockey League before you became members of the Air Force Academy. Blake as a Clark Cup champion, captain with the Sioux Falls Stampede, and Zach with the Bloomington Thunder of the USHL, then became the Central Illinois Flying Aces later on. But Zach, let's start with you. I want to talk about the USHL, and I want to talk about not only your experience there, but have you noticed little tidbits or takeaways from your time in the USHL that you're now utilizing as a member of the military at Air Force Academy? And Blake, you can follow up after Zach finishes with that, because I'm sure you guys might have some things that you say, I maybe learned this life skill in the USHL, and now I see myself using it at the Air Force Academy.
Top tier junior league. Living away from home is really kind of the first big step into, growing and into maturity. And for that, the USHL, that was my first year living away from home. Granted, I played 2 years in a top tier 3 or tier 3 league before that. I was still living at home. And, I still was under the care and nurture of my parents where, you have a sponsor family, a billet family. We call them sponsor families at the academy, but we have billet families in all the junior leagues. And there are some out there, most out there, that provide excellent care to the kids who they house. I think the first step, for maturity is living away from home, and the USHL provided me and everybody else who played in that league with that opportunity. Not to mention, obviously, it's the only only tier 1 league in the country. So it's top level hockey, and going from that level of play to NCAA D1, Atlantic League hockey, it wasn't very much of a hard transition. Obviously there's older kids in college, but the level of play was it wasn't as different as anybody would think it would be.
Yeah, going off that, it is that being away from home, it is a big part of that thing, maturing and being able to leave your family like that and go off into a new place and sort of be able to get through the day and learn how to live your life that way. It's definitely a learning stepping stone. And And when you're in the USHL, it's top level, like he was saying, like you're full-time hockey player. It teaches you that you have to put all the effort into this thing. You can't mess around on the side. It's nearly a full-time business, and it teaches you that you're going to have to work for everything you're going to get. So as you go through the day, you focus on hockey, you practice maybe a few hours, you lift a few hours, and it's from there, it's watching videos or training or connecting with your team. It's just building relationships and being able to be on your own as a person.
Yeah, I'd also like to say, like, people listening might, be asking themselves, kind of every league in the country, you get a built family and you kind of have the same schedule. Well, I mean, the USHL, it's the only Tier 1 league for a reason. It has the best play, the best players, and all the teams and organizations are run outstandingly. It's a business, and there are a lot of professionals in the business. It's probably is the best run organization in the country, and it's Tier 1 for a reason.
Zach, I want to get to some of those high points for you. I'd imagine the high point for Blake Bry is going to be a Clark Cup championship, so we can get to him. But Zach, from your perspective, your year in Bloomington, which was several years ago now, seeing as you just finished up your junior season at the Air Force Academy. But bring us back to that time, bring us back to your experience there. And when you think back about your time with the Thunder, what stands out and what are some of your high points of the USHL experience?
I'd say probably all the new people I met. And I mean, that can be easily said for, anybody who kind of goes to new places. But I mean, I've met, kids who went on to play in at Madison and North Dakota. And, if I never ventured out to Bloomington, then I would have never even met like those kind of kids, who some are like going to be draft picks. And I'm still keeping in touch with a lot of them. They might go play in the AHL the next few years, or maybe the NHL. And meeting all those kids was just it was awesome. I'm still friends with a bunch of them today. And I'd also like to say, my brother and I, we actually went out to Bloomington at the same time. So, I mean, living with him for about 4 or 5 months it was awesome, because we've never really been, in the same kind of living scenario for about 4 or 5 years before that, because I went off to school in high school, lived away, and then he kind of lived away too. So, I mean, kind of rekindling that our relationship, and then, playing together in the same D pair, some games it was awesome. And, I'd love to say that my parents probably loved it too.
Blake, from your perspective, I'd imagine that being a Clark Cup champion, and in all things considered, still a defending Clark Cup champion, even though you weren't a member of the league this year, is your high point moment. Talk about being the pinnacle of the USHL, winning a Clark Cup championship, and doing so in Sioux Falls, which has a fan base that is almost unparalleled in this league.
I mean, it was an amazing experience. Sioux Falls, off the bat, is just is my favorite place that I've played. I mean, the fans are amazing. The community, it really all comes together there. When you have a Wiener Dog night going on and you have 11,000 people in stands, it's kind of hard to imagine, and you've got to take in a lot. You never really played with this amount of people around and this love for the game, so that was awesome. And then just winning the Clark Cup was something special on its own with that team, that family. Coming together with those players was something else. I mean, you meet friends forever. Like Zach was saying, he's still close with all of them, talking to them. They're all different places. They're all venturing out, doing these amazing things. And it's great to see that we were all together at one point and seeing everyone's paths from there out, from going to Lowell and all over the world playing hockey. I think we had like 4 or 5 draft picks that year. Just seeing them all develop and get to the next level. It's great to see.
Blake, how was that going from the NA to the USHL in your last year. You were probably, you were a big guy in the NA, a big point getter. You go to the USHL, it's a little different role, but not many guys go from the NA to the USHL and make an impact, and let alone make an impact, be a captain of a championship winning team. How are you able to pull that off when not many guys would be able to do that?
It was a big shift for me. Going into the USHL, I didn't know anyone on this team. I didn't actually know any of these players. I've really never seen them before, playing lower levels, and then being in Texas. You're not really going to meet most of these kids. And then having the chance to make the team was just a great start. And the first few games, first month, it's building, like trying to learn the game. It's completely different than the NAL. So one way is physical. I was in the South, a lot of hitting. And now I go to a league that's skill-based. You have talent. You have young guys that are future NHLers, and it's a huge shift in the game. So you just have to learn how to change your style of play. I changed mine to I wasn't more of a goal scorer. I was more just working as hard as I possibly could to help my team win, probably killing penalties and all that. And you have your certain role you find. And then just the biggest thing for me, I was old enough to be able to adapt and talk to these young kids. That really helped me. I had been through a lot through my career, so I had a good insight on what would happen if people were having tough games. It's the ability to bring people up and not bring them down, so you could lift up your team. And I think that's really came. I was always talking to people, always trying to communicate. And these kids had so much talent, so I just want to push them to get to the highest level because they have the future ahead of them. So it's more just communicating, and it sort of worked out to somehow I got the captain when our captain had to go. And it went to me, thankfully, and I'm honored to have that. And it was just a special team there. And just having the ability to help these kids. And, they're way better than me, and I could admit that because I've seen these kids play. I see what they're doing, and it's impressive to see. And I'm just thankful I was part of the team.
Well, speaking of going through a lot, Blake, I have heard some horror stories about the culture shock that happens when you walk into your first year at the Air Force Academy. And Zach, you're a little further removed from that first year status. Blake, you're just finishing up your first year. I had some teammates when I was in the North American Hockey League that went to the Air Force Academy, and I got calls from both of them almost 2 weeks in saying, I got to get out of here. They both stayed, they both graduated, but the first couple of weeks they just went, this is insane. Talk to us about that commitment, because you get there, you know there's going to be structure, you know it's the military, but it's a big culture shock, isn't it?
It's a huge culture shock. You really can never expect what's going to happen. You could be told, oh, it's this, but till you're there in the moment, you don't get to realize how crazy it is. And the freshman year especially, because they definitely drill it into you. They make sure you know what you have to do, you know your role, you know how to be an airman, you know how to do all these things. So your first year is just constant, just getting told what to do and learning, and just you have to learn. And punishments are involved at times. They're easing now, but you have to go through basic right off the start, and that's the true test right there. Being able to go about a month and a half about just getting yelled at, getting constantly worked, getting little sleep because you're so stressed out about what's going to happen the next day, the order of the things, how to properly get dressed. Like, there's so many nitpicky things that they teach you, and it becomes overwhelming. A lot of kids do leave. I had my roommate leave, and he was on the hockey team too. He had a hard time with it, and it wasn't that he's not fit for it. It's just some people aren't really ready for the whole thing, and it takes a toll on you. So it's not right for everyone, but it's if you could get through it, you see there's a lot of upside, and it's just definitely hard on you, but it's just mental toughness, I think.
Yeah, and he's there. It gets a little bit different every year, and some say it's easier or harder, but these guys had a little bit easier than the subsequent years. But no, yeah, for sure. there's definitely a certain mindset to all the cadets who go there, and especially through the first year, and then through the first 3 years, there's a lot of suck that you're gonna have to endure. But it's very rewarding when you kind of graduate and accomplish what every cadet has after the first year, and then the first 3 years, and then yeah, I mean the last year, there's not a ton you have to worry about except graduating, because that's the ultimate goal, and that's the hardest thing to actually do is commission into the Air Force and actually graduate from the school. But yeah, it's a real culture shock. The attrition rate is pretty high, especially in the first year. And believe it or not, the kids who have that mindset, specifically athletes, the kids who have that mindset but aren't able to kind of time manage and put it all together, actually have to quit their respective sports in order to just stay there. So it's really competitive, and it's really demanding, but in the end, it's also really rewarding.
The story I remember my buddy telling me that I always bring up when people ask me about what I know about the Air Force, which isn't often, and this is really all I do know about the Air Force experience, is as a freshman, there's lines on the outside of the halls that you have to walk on. Does that still happen? Do you still, if you don't walk on these lines, if you're a freshman, you get reprimanded for it?
That's
Everybody
just
else
the
can walk
beginning
down
of it. That's just the beginning. Oh yeah.
Fill us in.
It's from what I can remember, yeah, you gotta walk on the right side of the hallway, and at attention, which means no talking, no really gazing, meaning your eyes have to be straight ahead. Help me out here, Blake. You
have to have your hands cupped.
Yeah.
You have to be straight up. It's just you have to be walking directly straight with no movements, no talking, nothing at all, and that's just inside. And then outside, there's strips.
Trust me, yeah, exactly. Trust me when I say it's just the beginning of it, because it is. But believe it or not, it actually, you get used to it. You really do, and you get used to it quickly. And if you don't get used to it quickly, then it's just not going to work out for you. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to do, and if you don't do them, you'll get reprimanded.
Zach, how did Blake handle all of this? What would you grade him on his first year, performance here with all the rules and everything?
Oh, all our boys did beautifully. I mean, like I said earlier, it was a little bit easier than the past couple years. But yeah, no, they were awesome. They did great, except for, some of our guys who, couldn't really quite make the cut, whether that be for any number of reasons. The group that we finished up with at the end of the year, they were awesome, on the hill, which means like academically and militarily and all that stuff. But, also they were a huge part in our success on the ice, come when we had those good spurts, for 10 or 11 games, and then on our uptick at the end of the year.
Obviously, being a collegiate athlete, no matter what school or program you're at, is very difficult. For you guys, and for guys Army and other places that's a little bit different, it's even more difficult because you have hockey, you have to be as high performance and ready to go as possible for that, but then you have the classroom, but then you have all this stuff that you guys are talking about. In addition, not many guys go from jumping out of planes to hockey practice. I mean, it's got to be a little bit different. So those challenges, how do you guys get through that, knowing that even the team you're facing off with every weekend has half as much stress on them as you guys potentially do?
I mean, we do go through a lot. We have very little time for anything personal at all. It is pretty much you got something all day long from 6 a.m. to about 11 or 12, depending on the person. You got practice, you got school, you got study time, you got homework time, you got video for hockey, you got this, you got a workout. So it takes a toll on you, but when it comes down to it in the long run, when you're playing these games against these teams, they're not nearly going through half of what we're going to. Just the ability to get through each day, the mental toughness you have to fight through getting all these school assignments done and still practicing and still getting your lift in. I think it trains us well for games. It gives us that we can get through anything. We have that ability. If we could get through our school and this military academy, we could do whatever we want on the ice. It's more just we've been through worse that we can shine through this and play this game and play this certain way. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, not to mention like the class of intercollegiate athletes that you come in with, like team specific. I mean, they're your brothers. The school kind of likes to, get close with your squadron class, which is basically the 20 to 25 kids that you are placed into the same squadron with. But we as hockey players are away from the squadron so much that we can't do as well as we would have liked to be as close with those kids in the squadron because we're with the hockey team. And when we're down with the hockey team, we're always making connections, like great connections. We do team bonding trips at the beginning of the year just to become closer. And if one guy is looking like he needs a little bit of help, then the whole team's going to surround him and bring him back up and tell him, keep trying at this, keep trying at that, how can we help, stuff like that, because we don't like to see the guys in our team go and not be able to make it. So I think we do have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to playing other teams because of that and because of the team bonding and relationships we have with each and every player in our team.
Military aside, academics aside, let's talk hockey, because this is a great hockey program at Air Force Academy. Over the last decade, this has been a program that has consistently won. And you look at the Atlantic Hockey Conference and the dominance that the Falcons have had over that entire conference for the last decade and change. And you look at, there are so many perks to going to this school, despite how difficult the early goings of it might be. But when you leave this school, you really are set for life. Is a lot of one of my buddies that told me said is, you can get through this, you're in a wonderful scenario for the rest of your life. And he's living that now. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But talk about the program there and talk about not only, it's not just going there, and hockey is not, as you said, Blake, I believe earlier, you said this is a full-time commitment to hockey as well. It's not just we're here to become a member of the military and go to school. Hockey is expected to be a high priority for you guys as well.
Yeah, of course. I think all our coaches, Bergie, Junk, and Coach Sartor, I mean, they're salesmen, but at the end of the day, they're great and their product can back it up. Because, yeah, as you said, over the past couple years, the past decade, we've been a winning program. And a lot of, the perceptions of that the Atlantic League, over the past 10 years would be, it's not as a great league. And, it's a lot of older guys and not a ton of skill. And, if you look at just the past couple of years, we went in my freshman year, we went into St. Cloud and we beat them in the first or the regionals. And then you look at AIC, I think it was 2 years ago or last year, and same thing happened. And this league is just on an uptick. And yeah, there's a lot of older players, and yeah, it's a little bit more of a grinder-ish kind of league, but there's also a hell of a lot of skill. And so, yeah, I mean, the hockey program is great here. We just got a new locker room, which is fantastic. You know, the rink staff is great. All our staff is great, coaches, video guys, managers, everything. Yeah, and to top it, you know, our team's great. So,
Yeah, I think our coaches attract the right players. They definitely have a good mindset when they're getting kids here. You see these kids coming in, and they all have a drive. They all have passion and this hard work effort that you want to see when you're on the ice. You want your teammate to have someone who's going to go battle for you. And you see all these kids coming in, and they all have that. So the team's always so talented and doing good is because they attract the right guys. They want people who are going to put their life on the line for the person next to them, and that's part of the military. So you really attract the kids who are going to work their hardest every game, and maybe they don't have as much skill as a person across from them, but they'll work harder than them. They're going to fight to the last second, and I think you see that in the past few years. Just how well they've done is their ability not to give up and just always want to be better and work till the very end. And you see they've gone really far, and they could go even farther. So we have a good team here, and I think it's only getting better, and I think we could keep improving on it as we keep getting these new players in that are young and talented and have the same drive as we do. And I think we have a good team coming in. It's going to only get better.
Zach, you bring up the signature win, the St. Cloud State victory in the opening round of the NCAA regionals, and it was a David versus Goliath situation on paper, but it was a moment that I'm sure you'll never forget, and certainly anybody associated with Air Force hockey will never forget. Take us back to that game and tell us the why. Why did that game fall in favor of the Air Force Falcons? Certainly you can bring up another USHL alumni, Billy Christopoulos, in goal, who had a huge night that night, making a ton of saves in that hockey game, but there's more to it than just goaltending. Take us back to that night and why you think that game went the way it did.
Where do I start? I mean, you know, playing in the USHL, like Blake said, you know, the fans are awesome. And the Atlantic League, you know, the ranks and fans, you just can't really quite match it. But then when we go to Sioux Falls and, you know, playing in front of that many people, it just kind of brought me back to, you know, playing at Green Bay and maybe playing at, you know, Youngstown actually had a pretty good fan base a couple years ago. And, you know, the fans were awesome. You know, there's nothing quite like it. The adrenaline's pumping and everything. And another big thing was, you know, our leadership that year was just fantastic. Our captain, you know, Dylan Aboud, he's an awesome guy. He, you know, probably wasn't the best hockey player, but he was the best leader by far that I ever had, and I probably will ever have. You know, that group of seniors, you know, right down the line, juniors, sophomores, you know, the year before they got it done. The year before I got there, they got it done. And, you know, they learned from the guys who graduated, and, you know, they put together a real good team that year. You know, Billy, obviously, he's awesome goaltender. You know, I don't think I've ever scored on him in practice. But yeah, like we had everything. We had some goal scorers. We had the leadership. We had the, you know, kind of the hustle that year. And it was really, really fun.
We've talked about all the challenges you guys go through, and one that sometimes maybe gets overlooked is that you guys are in the Atlantic Hockey Conference, and you guys are as far away from your conference as maybe the Alaska teams are to their conferences. But I mean, which one's your closest team? Do you guys joke about this? Robert Morris and Pittsburgh, maybe Mercyhurst? I mean, you guys are so far away from your opponents, and the travel you guys must have to go through is crazy. And does anyone of you guys ever fly the plane when you go visit these places?
Yeah, I was going to say, just take fighter jets to the games. They get there in Mach 5 time. It's unbelievable.
that would be an intimidating way to show up to games.
Yeah, no, it's not as bad. I mean, obviously you fly everywhere, but me being from the East Coast, my parents can make all the games selfishly, but I mean, it's not that bad. We take Southwest everywhere, so we can get all the flight miles and everything.
Give him a shout out.
But yeah, yeah, it's not. I mean, also like being that school is so hard. We get to leave on Wednesdays right after class, whereas most schools, they would either travel the day of or the day before, like at least or at most. I mean, it's crazy. So we get to leave right after class on Wednesday. Bring our class stuff for Thursday and Friday, but Thursday is kind of a pre-game day practice, and then Friday morning we have a pre-game skate, and our minds, as much as they should be, they aren't really focused on the academics, after we leave school. And at times we have flown military aircraft. It's not going to be as often as it was, but that's cool too. I mean, we pull right up to the tarmac. We, kind of get in a chain gang line and load the plane. They're not the most comfortable, but they get the job done. And yeah, I think sometimes some of the guys can go up to the cockpit for a landing and takeoff, and that's pretty cool to see. And just kind of being around active duty guys, like they're kind of like mentors. How's this going to be when I commission? Am I going to be a pilot or something like that? And if I am, am I going to be like this guy? Oh, what's he doing? Stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Zach pretty much summed it all up. I mean, honestly, trips are my favorite time. Being able to leave and go maybe relax somewhere instead of always being on ease when you're on campus. You're always doing this. You get a little more freedom of just like sit back. I'm gonna get my school done and I'm gonna focus on hockey. I get that chance to just prepare for every game. We get treated very well on the road, and we get a lot of time to think about the game and prepare for it. And I think it really fits well. And I think we do well on the road. And I think the reason is because we have a good setup going into the road games, and we have good game plans laid out. And it really just comes together when we're on the road, because we travel so much and we always go that same distance. It's always to the East Coast. So when we're traveling, we know the exact schedule. We know what we're going to be going through. And it doesn't really alter because all our flights are all 3 or more hours away. So you get into a good pattern, and you could actually it really helps me out as a student and helps me learn more and get my schooling and caught up where I need to be.
We've talked a lot about the challenges, the difficulties of being a hockey player, being a student in general at the Air Force Academy. But if there's one thing that I've learned from people that have been through it and have talked about their experience there, is that yes, it's challenging. Yes, there's difficulties, but that's not anything that really has deterred a lot of people from having an incredible experience at the Air Force Academy. There's a lot of fulfillment, pride, achievement to go with it. And it's something that people leave there being so well set up to not only serve, but then maybe get out of serving at some point later in life and be a very functioning and affluent member of society. So I want to leave it with, if anyone tunes into this and might be considering Air Force, a military service, whether it be through the Air Force Academy or elsewhere, what would be your sales pitch? You guys talked about how Coach Saratori and that staff can be salesmen for you guys from a sales pitch perspective. Why do you think the Air Force is as special of a place as people talk about it being?
Yeah, it's just all it is just opportunity. I mean, the places and things that we have and Blake will be able to do and go at his time there. It's second to none. It's crazy. I don't think any of the kids in my class are the class that we have currently at the school have done it, but I mean, the classes above us have gone to like Africa and the Middle East and just crazy places, which you would never have that opportunity if you're not a cadet. And not to mention like just character building and stuff like that, like personal development. I mean, like I said earlier, you go through a lot of suck, but at the end of the day, it makes you a better person and it makes you have a stronger character. You just have crazy cool things to put on your resume for later down the road if you want to end your career in the military or something like that. But yeah, there's an awesome amount of opportunities that you can experience if you want to become a cadet.
I'd say it will be hard. My sales pitch is basically, it will be hard, it will be stressful, but the things you get out of it are second to none. You get relationships and you basically create family within these people you live with. So these 4 years you're at the academy, you create friendships, bonds that will last a lifetime. And you're going to see these people across the world. Like maybe 5 years after you graduate, you meet back up with this person and you guys are in a different country doing different things there. The opportunities are endless after you finish. It's just getting through some tough parts, but it's very possible with the support you get. You really get that family aspect when you're there and treated and cared for in every possible way. So yes, there's struggle, but there's such upside in everything that you're able to do outside of this. And it will take you places you've always wanted to go. And you can't really beat that. I think it's definitely special to be there and get through it. And you can't really know until you're fully done with it and see all these amazing things. And you could hear from all the past people who've gone there. They'll say it, but you just wait till you've done it and you'll be able to witness all these great things that you've been able to do as a person. And it's all thanks to the military and being in it, and getting through the academy is the first step.
As we close this out, guys, I realize that I've committed one of the top cardinal sins of journalism, and that is I buried the lead. Head coach Frank Serratore is one of the most iconic coaches in hockey right now in terms of he's a walking soundbite, a journalist's dream, really, if you're working in Colorado media. I've seen that the Air Force Academy on their Twitter has been doing these, I think it's maybe Fridays with Frank, or they've been doing these little clips of post-game sound bites of Frank Serratore. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He is a joy to listen to from a journalist perspective. I want to end it with, and again, keep it brief, keep it PG, but are there any great Coach Serratore stories that stand out to both of you that we could end on a funny note here with this afternoon?
I'm not sure about PG, but yeah, this obviously for the people listening out there, you gotta YouTube this guy. He's just one of a kind. This things that he says in the locker room every day that probably can't be said on here, but it's just, he's a joy. He's an absolute joy, and I love him, and I know all the guys love him. If you really want to get a good Frank impression, there is none. You got to go talk to him. You really do. So I don't know, Blake, you got any PG ones? I
don't really have any PG ones, but there's so many out there. It's like you said, you can't reenact it. It's coming from him. It's amazing. It's funny. It's everything you need. Just talking to the guy and having a normal conversation, he'll drop one of those off on you. And if you just honestly get to meet the guy ever, he's an amazing guy, and he'll make you laugh. He'll do everything. He's a great coach, great person, and he definitely has a lot of one-liners that comes out, and he'll make you laugh. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a real joy for us. We can't thank you enough, A, for this time today, but I should say B, for this time today, but A, for the journey that you have both chosen to not only play Division I college hockey, to represent the USHL, but to represent our country in the Air Force and via the Air Force Academy. So, guys, thank you for this. We're really grateful for it. A big happy 4th of July to both of you. And we are looking forward to watching you not only continue your success on the ice, but off it as well.
Yeah,
Thanks
for
for having
sure.
us.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Another big shout out and thank you to Zach and Blake for taking time out of their day. And this is their off season, yes, but and they're doing a little bit less than normal because of the pandemic and everything. But still, I'm sure that they're got to stay mentally focused even in the summer to get ready for all the stuff that they go through. And you heard how crazy it was. So big thanks to them for taking time out of their day to join us and give us a little insight to the Air Force Academy and being a hockey player there.
How about taking the cargo military planes to games? Like, imagine just throwing your bag on the back of that and hopping on there and being like, all right, here we go. We're on an Airbus. Time to fly to the game.
The other
That's
teams
just
don't see
wild.
it. But, like, imagine if they, like, just landed in the parking lot or something. How intimidating that would be. They come out.
The game would be over before it even started. You'd have
Yeah.
half the team shelling up.
I mean, there's no way this – I obviously I don't know the stats offhand, but there's no way this team is bad in the third period, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to wear down the Air Force and then
No.
take it home late in the game. Like, they have to be, maybe with the exception of, you know, Army and other military academies. I mean, they have to be the most mentally tough team in the country. It's insane.
I wouldn't bet against it. So thanks to Zach. Thanks to Blake. That was a blast. Hope they enjoyed it as well.
And everyone, enjoy your 4th of July. Do it safely. We hope everyone's having a great holiday weekend. And we really appreciate you joining us here on this episode. So for our 2 Air Force players and Ben Gisselson, I'm Chris Treff, and this was the U Show Podcast.
This is the U Show Podcast.